this is a slow creep to global government. And why do I say that? Well, because the UN is a globalist institution. It was financed by the Rockefellers just after World War II. And I think the globalists wanted to impose global government actually earlier than after World War II. They wanted to do it through the League of Nations. But Americans at the time, they weren't as brainwashed, and they rejected the League of Nations. But unfortunately, World War II changed that. Monday, July 7th, 2025, Maneco 64, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. Well, today we're going to talk about the UN, global government, and global taxation. And also we're going to talk about the UK, because I spoke about last week, the day I posted a video about Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, and the fact that she's taxing and regulating and favoring the public sector in the UK is killing the private economy. That I talked about Rachel's great taking, right? That was the day that she cried in Parliament during Prime Minister's question time, which was on Wednesday. That's the day I posted that video, before she cried. Because, as I've said in the past, not just in relationship to the UK, but all the major Western countries and others, Keynesian economics, which entails interventionism, hyperactive fiscal policy, interventionist central banking policy, money printing, those things always end in tears. And as Dr. Mark Faber said recently in an interview I did with him, democracies unfortunately almost always inevitably collapse because of hyperinflation. And why is that? Well, because politicians need the votes. The best way to get votes is to promise goodies for the populace. And the vast majority of people are okay with that. Unlike you and me, hopefully, that want to be self-reliant, sovereign, and depend on our own hard work and entrepreneurship to survive. Most people don't think like that. And it's understandable, because if someone offered me something for nothing, I will think twice about it. I mean, I turned 60 last October, and only recently I got this Oyster card, which is a transportation card in London for over 60s. You pay £20 a year and you get to travel for free, basically. Yeah, I did pay £20, but I took it. You know, people are not stupid. They'll do it. But unfortunately, that's what leads to dependence. And so what's the UN got to do with all this? Well, I was reading recently, this past weekend, that the UK signed on to this Seville agreement, Seville in Spain. 192 countries signed for it. And basically it's an agreement concerning all kinds of things like taxation, regulation, climate change, money laundering. And of course the British officials, Treasury officials, say, well, you know, the Chancellor still has the ultimate power to impose taxation and other laws and rules and regulations. But I think this is a slow creep to global government. And why do I say that? Well, because the UN is a globalist institution. It was financed by the Rockefellers just after World War II. And I think the globalists wanted to impose global government actually earlier than after World War II. They wanted to do it through the League of Nations. But Americans at the time, they weren't as brainwashed, and they rejected the League of Nations. But unfortunately, World War II changed that. And that's why I think this is very dangerous. And even though what President Trump is doing, generally a lot of crazy stuff, in my opinion, he has not signed this Seville agreement, which I think is great. They've got their fingers in all the pies from this agreement. And yes, they'll come out and say, well, this is not the law, but whenever a big crisis hit, you can bet all the countries that have signed that agreement, they're going to make new laws based on that agreement. And so what do you do in that situation as an individual? Well, it's very hard because I think 192 countries have signed it. The US hasn't. Can we all move to the US? Not really. I think the important part here is that you are aware of it and that you protect yourself accordingly. And I'm not here to tell each individual person what to do. You need to start thinking for yourself and use common sense. That's all I can say. What about, let's change subject now to the market and to our favorite place to park some of our savings, i.e. gold and silver. How are gold and silver looking? Well, I think they're looking good. I've had a look at some of the charts, long-term charts over this past weekend of gold and silver, and I had a look at some of the moving averages, like the 200-day moving average and the 20-week, 50-week moving average. And I think what's happening, especially to gold, considering the big move we've had in gold. Don't forget, the beginning of 2024, gold traded below 2,000 and we're now at 3,300. So I think there's a train going by there. That train goes to Montreux, and then you change trains there, and then you can go to Geneva. It's called the MOB, or MOB. The mafia doesn't run it. It's called Montreux Oberland, and it was built in the early 1900s, this line, and this is what made this part of Switzerland such a nice tourist place. But anyway, talking about gold and silver and the moving averages, yeah, I think the consolidation we've seen in the last almost 2 months, and it's been between 3150 and let's say 3350, almost 3400. That might continue a little further. Silver is not as far away from the moving averages, the silver price, as gold. So silver, I think, is going to continue to lead gold. And that's normal. I've spoken about this many times in the last 10 years, excuse me. I'm not tired, I'm fine. I've spoken about it that since 1971, when Nixon detached gold from the dollar, the dollar from gold, the bull markets in the precious metals, you had the 70s bull market, the 2000s bull market, and now the current bull market. I would say it started in last year with the break of 2000. they're always led by silver towards the end of the bull market move. In the beginning, it's quite frustrating, and I've looked at charts in the 70s. Silver did quite well up until 74, 75, and it was stuck below, I think, I forgot the price now, but I'll put a chart here and you can see it. And it was only like in 79 that it really started taking off, and it was a huge move. So what I'm trying to say here, if you got discouraged from 75 to 79 and sold all your silver and your silver miners, you would have been kicking yourself. So patience is the name of the game. Same thing for gold. And I think the world as well is getting more and more divided. We're not back in the globalization era. We're in the new multipolar world, and even Americans, the American leadership realizes that. Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, said that. And even Trump, he was at the G7, and he said, you guys made a big mistake kicking Russia out of the G8. And I think he was right, because what that did, it made Russia and China and other non-Western countries concentrate even more on BRICS. So what I'm trying to say here, the Western countries have only got themselves to blame for the BRICS, the fact that it's expanding. But it was going to happen anyway. What about the dollar? Yeah, the dollar is not looking very good. As per the dollar index, it could go a lot lower. We closed below some key levels that Michael Oliver talks about. Michael Oliver, Momentum Structural Analysis. I think his level is 98.34. But don't be fooled into thinking that the way to hedge dollar weakness or euro strength is through fiat currencies. At the end of the day, all fiat currencies are sinking, and I've even got a playlist about that, and I was writing about that in a private blog I had while I was still working in the city back in 06, 07. The blog was called forsoundmoney.com, and I said all fiat currencies will keep sinking versus gold, and that's what's going to happen. So nothing except fiat currencies fall to zero. And by fiat currencies, I mean against real money, gold and silver. So that's how I see the dollar. What about the bond market? Yeah, I don't think the bond market looks that healthy, especially the longer end of the yield curve. Yes, we're still in like a 3-year consolidation after a huge drop in prices or a huge rise in yields, if you want to look at it in yields. And I think the next move for long-term yields are going to be higher, and that's going to be very, very prejudicial for all economies in the West, because, as I said before, our economies are financialized. Yes, people do work and produce to some extent in the West, but credit, borrowing, credit, and spending is a lot more important. And if your access to credit and borrowing gets more expensive, it's going to hurt the economy. So what do you do in that situation? Well, you work harder, you tighten your belts, and you change your lifestyle accordingly. Yeah, entitlement is a really bad attitude or to have. Nothing ever lasts forever, so you got to adapt. That's why humans have rational thought And that's why, you know, we've kept advancing. You have to adapt. So hopefully you're enjoying these walk and talks. I'll be doing this for the next 10 days or so. We're going to be here for a while. It's really nice to see my sisters, my mom, and other family here. And you gotta take advantage of these things. It's not just all about, yeah, well, working is important, but you have to be with your family as well as much as you can. And with that, I'm gonna wish you all a very good day. Take care. Bye.